Welcome to Live with Marketers, our award-winning LinkedIn Live broadcast series exploring industry trends and future forward views of the marketing landscape with some of the brightest minds in the arena. I'm your host, Alex Rinn, Senior Content Marketing Manager at LinkedIn, and I couldn't be more excited to bring Live with Marketers back for a special at-home series. In today's episode, we'll explore how you can turn your in-person events into engaging online experiences. We recently surveyed hundreds of marketers to find out what their biggest challenges have been in the past couple of months, and today we're going to share the results. LinkedIn's own senior streaming media producer, Chris Packard, will dive into how our own LinkedIn media productions team went live overnight, what tools they used, tips for recreating the magic without that in-person connection, and more. I'm also really excited to welcome Adobe's Director of Social Media, Ryan Lytle, who will share how Adobe went virtual with their annual summit. We'll cover how they quickly pivoted, the results they saw, and key learnings they'll take with them moving forward. You're also in luck today because in addition to this live broadcast, we're launching an ebook dedicated to helping you transform your event strategy. Head over to the LinkedIn Marketing Solutions blog after the show to get your copy. We'll also leave about 10 minutes at the end for live Q&A, so please submit any questions that you have in the comments section. Now over to our guests. Thank you so much both for being here today for a very special at-home edition of Live with Marketers. Ryan, would love for you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about what you do, and as is tradition here at LinkedIn, tell us something that's not on your LinkedIn profile.
Great. Thank you, Alex. And thank you to LinkedIn for having me. So, hey all, my name is Ryan Lytle. And as Alex mentioned, I'm Adobe's Director of Social Media. My role spans across all parts of the Adobe business. So from our brand social team to our Creative Cloud, Document Cloud, and Experience Cloud teams. It really, truly is an amazing role that allows me to get to tackle different challenges and opportunities every single day. I joined Adobe back in November of last year and really have had the great honor to work with some of the most innovative minds at Adobe. Prior to Adobe, I spent the past decade working in media. I was previously at Discovery, where I oversaw social strategy and partnerships for brands like Food Network, HGTV, Animal Planet, among others. I've spent some time really thinking about this particular session. Coming into this role from the media world, I would have said that it prepared me greatly for the mix of work I'd be taking on. But certainly in this moment in time, starting a role, shortly before a global pandemic, it's been an experience to join a large company like Adobe and to lead a team through this moment where we are all working remotely, where every event, essentially from a one-off meeting to a large conference, are all virtual, where every single person in our community has been impacted by this pandemic in some way, shape, or form. And I know for me, I know that this moment has really tested all parts of my approach and really my values as a leader. So I'm excited to be here to talk further about all these topics and more, specifically virtual events. And then one thing about me that's not on my LinkedIn, I was on an MTV reality show about 10 years ago. It was called MTV TJ, the search for the first Twitter jockey. It used to actually be on my LinkedIn. I've actually now removed it. I'm happy to discuss it with anyone. If anyone wants to get virtual drinks sometimes, feel free to message me. We'll talk about what 2010 was like.
That's amazing. I might have to put that one in my back pocket for follow-up later if no one asks about it in the comments. And Chris, would love for you to do the same so our audience to know a bit better as well.
Sure. Hello, I'm Chris Packard. I'm a senior streaming producer with LinkedIn Media Productions. So I actually helped produce this show for the past 3 years in terms of all the streaming and delivery to all of our platforms. So it's an absolute honor to actually come out in front of the camera now and help everyone out there with their own virtual workflows and their shift to virtual. And actually about 2 years ago, I started working with the video product team to help onboard different partners, broadcast tools to LinkedIn Live. So that kind of dovetailed nicely into our transition here at LinkedIn Media Productions to go all virtual. So I'll get more into that in the show. So one thing that's not on my LinkedIn profile, I've never been in the Navy, but I did play a naval officer in the hit TV series JAG. Show is called Sixth Juror, and I played the seventh juror. And spoiler alert, in case you want to go back and watch it, the judge did it in the end. Cool.
That is amazing, Chris. I can't believe I've known you all these years, and I am just learning that. And I'm seeing from the feed that you're being compared to a young Robert Redford. So you'll have that forever.
I also love that you have props. That's great.
I might have a few friends on the stream. I don't know. We'll
Probably.
people trolls, yeah.
All right, so to kick off today's discussion, we'd like to pose a question to actually our audience. The question is, given the current environment that we all find ourselves in, how are you, as a marketer, how are you managing your event strategy? So are you, A, you're going completely virtual, B, some of your events are going virtual, but maybe not all quite yet, or C, you're pausing all events until further notice? We'll just give you a moment to answer, and you can just respond in the comment section.
All virtual.
Come in. There's no right or wrong answer here, but Ryan, Chris, do you have any predictions of how this will pan out?
Yeah, Chris, go ahead. I think you were already jumping in.
Yeah, I already jumped over you, Alex. But yeah, I think that the shift is going all virtual right now. It's just been accelerated in COVID. We were already kind of making this shift. One of the tools that I helped onboard, broadcast tools stem from like more professional high-end ones that we used previously in LinkedIn Media Productions. And then I also worked on some more DIY ones. So, which is actually one of the tools that I helped onboard is what we're using today, which is called StreamYard. So I think this shift is really accelerated. I don't know, Ryan, you want to?
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of what Chris is saying. I would say that probably not all are going virtual. I would say some, but not all. I think a lot of businesses are probably pausing a lot of the in-person events that they were having and scrapping some of the virtual events. Pivoting to virtual events can be very scary. It's a new type of muscle to flex. It's a new type of investment. And I think for those who have driven webinars and other types of online speaker sessions, there's an understanding around the process. But for those who are new to this, it certainly can feel daunting. So I think for a lot of businesses, it's dipping a toe, but maybe not pivoting everything, pausing some of it too.
Yeah, and so it looks like as I'm looking through the comments here that it's a pretty even split between folks going completely virtual and some going virtual, but not all. So wherever you are in your strategy, you're likely to learn something during this episode. So we're very glad that you're here. As I mentioned previously, we recently surveyed hundreds of marketers here at LinkedIn to find out how they're responding and adapting to COVID-19. When it comes to challenges faced, shifting marketing priorities came in first, followed by budget cuts, advertising investment and planning, switching in-person events to virtual events, which is what this broadcast is about, and finally, the tactical execution of campaigns. When we asked how marketers are shifting their strategies, looking specifically at tools used, we saw a marked increase in webinars, organic social and online video, followed by search and ABM. Relationships matter to marketers, now more so than ever. Real-time interaction has always been at the heart of building those relationships. And although we can't interact in person, that doesn't mean we can't stay connected to our communities. 40% of marketers have already or are planning to move events to a virtual or online format. So we figured, hey, now is the time to give a behind-the-scenes look at how the LinkedIn Marketing Solutions team is doing it and how Adobe, the global leader in digital media and digital marketing solutions, has found success. So everyone buckle in. First and foremost, Ryan and Chris, what are you doing to stay connected to your community personally and professionally? Let's go ahead and start with you, Chris.
Yeah, sure. I think, I think it wasn't a major transition for LinkedIn. We have a video on culture. So most of our calls are a video conference. Most of our rooms have big screens and cameras. So we could work from home kind of whenever we wanted to in the first place. So when the transition happened, I think there was actually a lot of advantages that arose. We weren't running between conference rooms to get into the next meeting. I think people were a little more easily accessible, and you didn't have that kind of water cooler conversation. But if you got ahead of it and scheduled some time with somebody to get some one-on-ones, I think that really helped. But the missing piece, the in-person, you can't really. There's not a lot of substitutes for that.
Yep.
Yeah, and I can jump in. I agree with Chris. I think, like a lot of people, the reliance on video conferencing has been very high. Given my team works with teams across the globe, we'd already been heavily reliant on video conferencing in general, but there's definitely been a big increase overall. And I'd say, for better or for worse, we are more connected and streamlined remotely than I think we really were at times when in person. You don't have the delays as people are moving from meeting room to meeting room or building to building. But you also miss out on the spontaneity of running into people you work with in the building or building out ideas in person. Like, I really do miss that in-person element of the office. But I would say, for my team here at Adobe, I've been really proud of how productive we've able to still be kind of in this remote work world. And then I'd say personally, like, I moved to California from the East Coast about 2.5 months before the pandemic hit and shelter in place. And so, we weren't really able to build out our social circles out here. So personally, a lot of Zoom hangouts with friends back in New York and Ohio, where I'm originally from. And I also was able to teach my parents to actually use FaceTime. So again, for better or worse, we've been doing that weekly call ongoing. So it's been a learning experience for all of us, really.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I know, some of the things that you all mentioned about coworkers and water cooler talk, it all hit home for me as I've already implemented some of those and implemented some of the ways to connect. I know that having a Zoom birthday party this year was a little bit different, but we made it work. So moving on, we know that a lot of marketers out there are feeling hesitant to go virtual with events. So kicking it back to the audience once more, we'd like to ask, what's your biggest barrier to going virtual with your events? Is it that A, you're not sure if you have the right technology and equipment? B, you're not sure how to make it look professional? C, you may be struggling with a content strategy to support this medium? Or D, you find it's difficult to keep the format engaging given that you don't have an audience right in front of you? And we'll just give you a quick moment to respond. I get the feeling a lot of marketers think that the equipment needed may be expensive or complex, but personally I found that there's tons of options. I don't know about you two. I know that this is something that we are going to address later on in the show.
Yeah, and I can definitely jump in. I followed up a while back with our in-house creative team. It's called Adobe Studio, to see what they recommended for capturing virtual presentations. And really, I mean, quite honestly, there isn't a secret sauce to this or some type of highly expensive product that we invested in when it came to Adobe Summit. A solid webcam, which you can find a decent one really for 30 to 50 bucks. A ring light, which I'm using right now, can cost $20 to $30 and up. I think one area where our studio team has recommended a bigger investment is on the mic. You can edit a presentation to cover or mask some parts of a video, but good audio is really vital for a really strong presentation or a really strong virtual event. So I think that's where we kind of landed. I mean, Pro Tools certainly are going to be more expensive, but again, does not take a lot to pull this together.
Yeah. So it looks like the majority of our audience that is tuned in selected D, so keeping the format engaging. This definitely mirrors what I've been hearing speaking to our customers. I think it's really difficult to know how to really cut through the noise, so to speak, when everyone just moved online all at once. So hopefully this is something that we can help with throughout this episode. Okay, so with so many marketers pivoting quickly, here is one of the biggest questions that everyone has been waiting for. How did you go completely virtual overnight? And Ryan, we'll kick it to you first.
Sure. To say that we went completely virtual overnight, I would say probably isn't completely fair. As I'd say for Adobe, there have been years of video conferencing, uniting our global teams together for town halls and other events like that. I think through years of webinars and in-person events, for example, we've been able to build out a strong muscle around lead gen and demand gen to really help cultivate and drive that interest. But I know we'll get to this piece later as we dig into the efforts around Adobe Summit. But basically we had about 25 to 30 days to pivot from Plan A, which was an in-person Vegas event, to Plan C, which was the digital experience that Summit 2020 became. And for us, it took a concerted effort to just create alignment across many different teams, just for transparency's sake. And I'd really like to say that our cross-functional collaboration was what I'd say one of the stronger aspects across the work that we did. We quickly set up and implemented a series of work streams. We had our normal stand-ups just to make sure all the teams were working together. And this really meant that on the day of Summit, that all of our marketing was in place and ready to deploy on time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
yeah, Sarah, go ahead. Feel free to jump in.
Sure. Plus one to what Ryan was saying. I actually had the opportunity to help out Adobe and with those efforts, and some of my efforts with LinkedIn Live support. Shout out to Big Han on that side as well. So I think the transition for us for LinkedIn Media Productions, because we'd already kind of onboarded some of these virtual broadcast tools like the one we're using today. Transition was somewhat seamless. But what was key too is that we have a whole other part of our organization, LinkedIn News, who also needed the same one. So it was like, it wasn't just us, it was different parts of the organization. But once we got them up and running, 2 weeks later, there was an interview with Bill Gates for LinkedIn News. And, maybe a few weeks after that, we started producing shows, and the amount of shows we did actually went up, increased. Like, I think it doubled actually on a per week basis. I think 1 week we did 7 or 8 shows in a week. So, yeah.
Wow. So let's talk about the tools. I know that there are a plethora, that's one of my favorite words. There are a plethora of broadcasting or slide sharing tools out there. So what are some of the new digital tools or programs that you've incorporated into your event strategy? And Chris, we'll start with you.
Yeah, on a pure kind of nuts and bolts basis, I think it's important to get your kind of home setup dialed in, right? Most important piece of this equation is your internet, right? You want to have at least 10 megabits per second upload speed. I'd recommend getting whatever the top tier internet speed you have in your own home office that you can get it. It's well worth the investment, and make sure that the connection is hardline. And then from there, we can start talking about the different, audio and video pieces. So right now, I'm actually on a little bit more of a high-end professional setup, but your webcam from your own computer works just as well, and with the audio. But I'll show you a little bit of the things we have going on. So this is a Rode mic. It's not too expensive. You can get it on Amazon, although might be a few weeks back ordered, but it works really well. I don't know if you guys can hear me pretty good. So, and then I'm actually using a Sony A7 mirrorless camera, hooked in via Magewell adapter into my computer. So it's a little bit more technically, advanced, but you can tell, Ryan and Alex are on their own computers and they look just as good. So.
Yep. Thanks, Chris. Yes, and you are coming in clear and we hear you wonderfully. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, so I mean, plus one to what Chris noted, and I'll jump in a little bit on some of the digital tools that we had leveraged. Because we're talking LinkedIn too. We ran a LinkedIn Live after Summit to recap, some of the key points from our event. And it was also, I think, the first time that we had leveraged StreamYard to run the live, and it went very smoothly, which was great because it was in a very important live for us. And so being able to run that without, a lot of concern about just the overall certainly made us feel a lot more calm about running that on our Adobe company page, which was actually the first live we had run on our Adobe company page. And then beyond that, I think across our marketing group, we rely heavily on SharePoint just to act as a central repository for everything from our strategy materials to our media plans to our creative assets. Really having a central hub for our global teams is vital. Airtable, which we leverage for our content calendars and just overall organizational tool within my social team, was incredibly vital as well. And then I'm certainly biased, but we really truly couldn't have pivoted and executed this event in less than a month without our suite of Creative Cloud and Document Cloud and Experience Cloud tools. From Premiere Pro to actually just edit down the hundreds of hours of footage, to collaborating within Acrobat, to the real-time work that we did within analytics just to personalize the experience. It was actually truly a moment where all of our products that we market and promote daily were in some ways the heroes themselves.
Yeah, I love that. And I just wanted to mention that by using LinkedIn Live, you can choose to live stream to your page followers or your event attendees, so you can meet your audiences where they are. And admins can leverage, I know we mentioned StreamYard, but there's other third-party broadcasting partners that we have, including Restream, Wirecast, Social Live, and there's more being added. Yeah. So just a couple more digital tools that you can use. Unfortunately, as everyone knows here, you can't copy and paste an in-person experience. It may seem a little awkward to present without seeing an audience's reaction, but how do we go about attempting to recreate the magic of an in-person event when everyone is virtual? Ryan, did you want to start that one off?
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of impossible to really fully recreate the magic of an in-person event. For many of these conferences, I mean, Summit including, the actual event is just part of the experience. So most attendees are traveling to some of these larger events. There's opportunities for networking with new contacts, with old friends. Like there's just a piece of that you can't fully replace. But what I would say, just to kind of reframe it, is that you can lean into the advantages that come with a digital event, namely the accessibility and the personalization pieces. And for us, that also meant making Summit a free to attend experience. For our web and innovation teams, that has meant improving the user experience each time a visitor comes to our Summit experience as well. And especially for me, I have a lot of heart and excitement for the accessibility piece. In general, we essentially went from an in-person event with 20,000 plus attendees to an event that, at last check, we were well over 100,000 registered. We truly have an opportunity to reach and connect with many more customers, not just through, for lack of a better term, not just through FOMO and awareness of our event, but with all of the Summit content that actually lives somewhere online. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, and I do believe that moving all virtual events online allows for more accessibility and more personalized experience, and it just happens to be free. So all wins there. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's important to understand too that the live streaming piece has always been a part of these events, and it's had an increasing importance over the years. When I first got to LinkedIn, Talent Connect is probably our biggest conference. And the live stream was still kind of in its infancy. The focus is on the in-person experience, which is a great experience. We up-leveled that, and then so over the years, increased viewership 10, 20x. And so yeah, just like Ryan said, you're going to reach many more, thousands, if not millions, of people online than you will have in your own in-person experience. Now with the shift to virtual, the live stream is probably the most important piece because we can't be there in person. But there's actually some advantages I feel that you have with an all virtual experience, right? So let's imagine you're going to watch a panel or a keynote. You can't really interact with the other people in the audience while you're watching the whatever presentation's going on, right? But you can through chat on LinkedIn Live and other platforms, and engage with other people in your area of focus in real time and make real genuine connections. So I think that's the real advantage of virtual events, is that real time communication.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Chris. And another big part of the virtual experience is how speakers and guests present themselves. So this is where I want to pivot to talk about what are the essentials for setting up an at-home studio. And Chris, we'll start with you since you seem to have your own little corner of the world set up for you there.
Yeah, and I already previewed a little bit, but I'll kind of walk you through what I laid out before. So, like I mentioned before, hardline connection is really key here. We're sharing our Wi-Fi with others in their house and our connections and maybe even the neighborhood as well. So make sure you're hardlined in. Decent camera, like I said before, you don't have to have an amazing camera. Your webcam is going to be great, but make sure that you're looking into the camera. Sometimes people can kind of look down on their screen, instead of looking in the camera. I think we've all been on VC calls where we're looking at people looking down. Good lighting is key as well. I have some setups here with some kind of $20, $40 roto lights. They're battery powered. You can do that, or you can just get some really good lighting that's front facing. Can you bring that slide back up again? And yeah, clear audio. Obviously, I have this Rode mic, but plenty others. I will say AirPods is a little bit debatable internally. What we've found is that they have really great quality, but you have to make sure that they're powered up ahead of time. So anything battery powered is you're going to run some risk with that. And then in terms of the tools that offer remote guesting capabilities, StreamYard is what we're on right now. It's worked really well for us, but there's others that are doing very well as well. So Restream just launched Restream Studio about a month ago. That tool is really amazing. We're able to do some really cool stuff with real-time comments. Social Live has a great tool. Switcher Studio as well, and Switcher Studio does really well for iOS. And Wirecast, which was our first broadcast tool partner, they've been in the game for a long time and offered Wirecast Rendezvous, where you can actually bring in guests remotely as well, and it's a little bit more higher end. All of these tools, by the way, are integrated via API into LinkedIn Live.
Great. And what about you, Ryan?
Yeah, so I agree with Chris on these points. Hardwired connection when you can is key. Good lighting, good mic for audio, and then I think one other piece of advice that I've gotten from our studio team is, for videos that are going to be edited down, record your presentation in a program like QuickTime or a comparable video capturing tool. Don't record it through Zoom or BlueJeans, as that will compress the file. And especially if you're going to be editing, like I said, you don't want to be sharing compressed video files.
Yeah, that is definitely another great point. I know in terms of tools, for me, buying a selfie ring light wasn't exactly my finest moment, but it seems to be working pretty well, so I'll keep it. I just wanted to shout out a quick reminder that we are going to be taking live questions at the end of this, last like 10 minutes or so. So please feel free to drop any questions that you have thus far, anything about LinkedIn events or how Adobe pivoted in the comments area, and we'll be sure to get to those towards the end. All right, so shifting gears a bit here, we'd be remiss not to talk about measurement, and Ryan is going to dive into this a bit when he shares about how Adobe moved their Summit online. But Chris, since you're super close to the product itself, I was wondering if you could share a bit about how our team is measuring success with video and the LinkedIn Live analytics that are available today.
Sure. Me first?
Yeah, please.
All right, cool. All right, yeah. So I would say with LinkedIn Live Analytics, the headline here is that we have analytics that you're not going to find anywhere else, right? So what's key for marketers is they want to know that they're reaching people within the industry that they're either trying to sell to or connect with. And within LinkedIn Live Analytics, you're going to see where from which companies. Top 10 companies reviewing your stream, as well as the top 10 job titles. So let's say if you're running a conference on data science, you want to reach data scientists or people that are buyers within that organization. So I think that's something that you're not going to find anywhere else, and that's what's big with LinkedIn Live.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention also quickly that when you're using video, what you're measuring really also depends on your objective. So if it's brand awareness, it could be peak concurrent live viewers and total viewers. If it's engagement, it could be live viewers as well as live engagements like reactions and comments, and total engagements also during the live session and during the replays as well. So something to keep in mind. Let's now pivot to the conversation I'm really excited about, which is Adobe's experience moving their annual summit online. So Ryan, can you help us set the scene for the amazingly huge task that your team took on?
Sure, yeah, happy to. So just to give a little bit of context to those who may not be familiar with Adobe Summit, this is arguably our largest, most consequential event of the year. It's 20,000 plus people in this event hosted in Las Vegas in March for our business, marketing, and commerce communities. It's 3+ days of wall-to-wall events, presentations, networking, parties, and all the excesses that come with a Vegas event. So as 2020 began its gradual, let's just call it evolution into the situation we see today, it was quite apparent before any state or national declarations were made that truly bringing a group of this size together would not be possible. So around kind of the end of February, early March timeframe, we pivoted from Plan A to Plan B, which was to host a more scaled back event in San Jose, which is where Adobe's corporate headquarters are. We were going to fly in speakers and influencers to be a part of kind of this new look summit. And then 2 weeks before Summit, California shelter-in-place mandates went into effect, which meant we had 2 weeks to pivot to Plan C, which essentially aimed to create an immersive, digital experience that featured our keynotes and innovation tracks, and also still 100+ breakout sessions. And really looking back on this, what felt like an insane ask to pivot an event that we really do plan all year for in about 14 days, actually turned out to be what I think is one of the best learning experiences that we as a combined company could have had in this moment.
Yeah, that's, like I said, huge task, not easily just to swiftly reorganize 23,000 attendees or so. So how did you solve for this?
Yeah, so I think there were a few things that we did throughout this process that really helped, I think, smooth out some of the challenges we faced along the way. I think, first off, we narrowed down our main event objectives. So, with an in-person event, it's incredible because not only do you have endless, let's not say endless, but you have a lot of content opportunities, but you also have this built-in marketing machine that is your attendee base. Those who are eager to share their learnings and to tell their communities where they are and what they're doing. But then, on the other side, you also have a variety of teams who all have different goals and objectives for what success looks like for an event like Summit. And that doesn't always align across a large company like Adobe. A digital experience like Summit condensed these focuses, really down to kind of two targets, like generating leads and driving engagement. And messaging also became very clear and consistent. I mean, it was, we're hosting a digital experience. This isn't just a virtual event. This is an experience. And secondly, it's free. These became the central messages. You get all the value of Summit knowledge without leaving your home or spending a dime to access. And then internally, we really leaned into heavy transparency and open communication across our various disciplines. Like I noted earlier, we had these daily stand-ups where it was just to touch base on updates, challenges, and progress. And then we also had broken out smaller work streams that were much more tactical to ensure that alignment was happening across our teams. Thirdly, I would say we had a heavy shift in our marketing budgets, where some of our spend would have been implemented more heavily during the actual 3-day in-person event. The digital experience allowed us to invest more heavily in pre-event promo to help drive event registrations. And then the performance data that started rolling in from day one of Summit really allowed our web teams to and our marketing teams to better utilize our retargeting efforts, to get the content in front of our ideal customers, and then allowed our web teams to fully personalize the site. So each time a visitor came back, they were getting a more aligned version of what they were looking for. And then, like I said, since we're here on LinkedIn, like we leverage tools like LinkedIn Live to engage an audience in real time, to create really, another inflection point, to share learnings from Summit, but to also share the background of how we turned it around so quickly. I think it was, a really great opportunity to connect in an authentic and direct way. And then the last thing I'll just add on the above, it really doesn't hurt to have a strong team around you. It was a really reaffirming experience for me, knowing how solid these teams are when faced with a huge task. And at that point, having only been with the company for a few months when we launched Summit this year, I got to see my team in action too. And it was something to appreciate. And I think really got us to an even stronger place after Summit.
That's all amazing. And I know that I believe it was the company's first ever LinkedIn Live session, hosted by Sarah Kennedy Ellis, Vice President of Global Marketing for Adobe, from her home. So I appreciate that transparency was part of your strategy, given that we're all at home.
Absolutely.
But everyone loves numbers. So might you be able to share what kind of results you saw?
Sure. No, I'd be happy to. So, we were really pleased with the results we saw from this effort. I think going into a digital event or a digital experience, we had modest registration goals for Summit, and we saw about 3x higher pre-registration numbers than we had originally set. And a healthy percentage of that was driven right here on LinkedIn, through our organic and paid tactics. In the lead up to Summit, our Summit experience had more than 1 million page views from visitors across, I believe it was 211 different countries. And then, our Summit recap, LinkedIn Live, drove remarkable results as well. The engagement rate, I believe, was nearly 40% higher than the average engagement rate we see on the platform. And then after the first 24 hours, we had nearly 30,000 views and I believe more than 2,000 reactions and comments. And, that's, certainly not bad for someone who was just broadcasting from their home. We were really happy with those numbers and the return there. And then I'd say through our social listening practices, just for background, we use TalkWalker for much of this work on our end. We saw, really favorable sentiment. Honestly, having worked a lot of events in my career, I really hadn't seen the type of positive sentiment around an event like what I had seen for Summit. And I think a lot of that certainly was just how the content was delivered. Our CEO, Shantanu Narayan, would have traditionally delivered the Summit keynote in front of, what seems like a 200 or 300 foot screen in a Vegas ballroom. And, this year he delivered a 15-minute keynote from his bedroom. We didn't try to mask that, and I think our audience really did connect with that piece.
Those are some really impressive numbers, and really amazing to see that you were able to reach a much broader audience in a global, cost-effective way. What would you say were the key learnings you'll take away with you for future virtual events?
Yeah, so I would say on our end, we are already trying to implement, much of our learnings into future events. This week, we launch Experience Makers Live, and we've already passed our registration goals handily earlier this week. And then later this year, we have our huge creative conference, Adobe Max, in October, which I am very excited about the opportunities that are going to be had with that experience. But the key learning. So first, I think just be very specific about your objectives for the event. It's an opportunity to really narrow down what your objectives and strategies need to be, but really ask yourself, what do you hope to accomplish, before, during, and after that event? Where do you want to be? Second, I would say determine clear roles and responsibilities across your teams. I think that was one of probably our biggest challenges Part of that just being how quickly we had to pivot. With the number of teams we had, there was a little bit of, I'd say, duplications of work, just because, again, moving quickly, hadn't fully just defined all the roles. And that piece, I think, just provided a little bit of a wrinkle in it. As for the content, I'd say keep it short and consumable. Most online events are not right for hour-long sessions. I say that as we are doing like an hour-long session. So I hope that this is interactive and interesting enough that people are sticking with it. But, we cut our keynotes from, hour-plus events to, 15 to 20 minutes or less. And then I'd also say prep cut downs of those as well. So you can share, because, everybody can look at the user data and understand that, you may have an hour-long keynote, but the amount of time that a user may watch online is much shorter than that. And then I'd say, finally, if you're running a virtual event with recorded video, just find a way to incorporate some type of live interaction opportunities with other attendees. And as we've talked about, LinkedIn Live can certainly be one solve for that. And then the last one, I think, very important, just listen to your audience.
Yeah, I think those are all great takeaways. I think that we've definitely gathered a lot of audience feedback during our live broadcasts that have helped to guide our content strategy moving forward. And then given that at least the format of Live with Marketers itself is a little bit longer, it's an hour versus we totally do the 15 and 20 minutes in different content franchises that we have here at LinkedIn. But given that this one's an hour, what we like to do is we have an on-demand version, first of all, if you missed it. But then we'll also take certain slices and dices, 1 minute to 5 minute segments, and promote those as well around a specific topic. So that's another way, if you have a longer form piece of content, if you want to kind of keep the fuel going on that fire in terms of promoting it. All right, given that virtual conferences may be the new normal for maybe forever, definitely for quite some time now. And to wrap up here today, given everything that we've discussed, I'd love to get some of both of your top tips for going virtual. Chris, I'll start with you.
Okay, cool. I think Ryan actually brought up a good point. It mentioned authenticity. And I think that's what you're really going to get with the virtual at-home environment. But I do think that, as we kind of get out of COVID, hopefully, sooner rather than later, there in-person events are going to be there. But maybe the amount of in-person audience and all that might become less of a thing. Who knows? Anybody's knows. So we can probably return to kind of these more on-premise production workflows. But the audience online is going to become more of a focus, I would say, because they can't maybe be there all there in person. So authenticity, I think, is really what we're finding with virtual events is what is really driving them right now. But there's also opportunities to up level these productions. I think there is a version of, as our kind of worlds merge with online gaming, and all that, I think we're going to start to find that these lines are starting to get blurred. But just, going back to the original point, I think the online audience and reaching people anywhere and giving those people access, is really what's going to become the main focus.
Yeah. So I would say I have 4 tips for going live. Certainly not an exhaustive list. There's many more tips, but top of mind for me. So number 1, don't break the bank. Like we talked about earlier, you can find quality webcams, quality mics, and lighting for an inexpensive cost online. Number 2, like we did for this live, definitely test before you go live. There's a million things that can go wrong. Your webcam may not connect at first, or something with your microphone or lighting. It's always good to do kind of a dry run and a dress rehearsal, just to ensure. Even if you've done it a million times, it's always good to practice ahead of time. Number 3, just ensure you have good lighting and good connectivity. Certainly important. And then I'd say number 4, and I think most important, especially if you are a speaker and you haven't done this too often, is just relax and take a deep breath. Live video can be overwhelming, but there's a reason you're the one presenting. You have something valuable to share. So just make sure you have confidence in that and just remember why you are part of the event.
Yep, love that. I have a couple to add, given that we are doing so much streaming recently and we've come across a lot of best practices. So I can't plus one enough the rehearsal sentiment that both Chris and Ryan mentioned. Another really small one is closing all other windows or programs, because you might get pinged and then it shows up and can distract you, or your audience can hear it. And then in terms of just the DIY video, I feel like a lot of marketers are scared of their background or their presentation coming off as a bit unprofessional because they are at home. But as Jeff Bell, one of our producers behind the scenes of all these streams, says, it's better to be present than to be perfect. So don't worry about perfection. Don't worry about pre-recording. It's live. Things are going to happen, and that's totally fine. Another thing I wanted to mention that you could potentially do is send your guests production packs to help your speakers, your guests, increase the quality of the recordings while they're still at home. So it could be like a branded mug or a tripod or a lighting or a small camera, those types of things. So now we're going to go ahead and open it up to the audience for time for some live Q&A. We've had a ton of questions come in. Thank you so much for that. I think the one that I want to start off with is the barrier that was mentioned earlier in the episode, which is our marketers are finding that they don't know how to keep this content format engaging, especially because everyone just jumped to making everything virtual just all at once. So do you guys have any tips for how to keep live broadcasts engaging given the clutter? I know we already talked about making them shorter, but is there anything else that you might be able to share? Feel free to jump in too.
Sure. Yeah, and I can start on this one. So, I think there's a few things to think through on this piece. So, number one, I think some of the examples that have even been used during this live. So making sure that the audience has an opportunity to, vote, whether it's through polls, to jump in with comments, being able to bring Q&A into it on a live side is, I think, really strong. I think for a lot of the recorded video, again, keeping it short and consumable, because we all kind of suffer from inattentiveness. It's great when you stumble over words. We all suffer from that online, especially. So being able to capture someone's attention, I think, when you're able to, especially with recorded video, being able to cut between kind of the speaker and a presentation, or just some other ways to mix like some textures in, just to break it up, I think is a really good thing. So I think those are kind of the areas that I would start with. And then finally, just keep it fairly simple. I think one of the things with virtual events is you try to do too much. You try to take what was the in-person event where you have a lot of different sessions or a lot of different breakouts, and you try and bring that all to a digital experience, and it doesn't always work. And so trying to simplify some of that, again, even simplifying some of your objectives, I think is a good way to go.
Amazing, thanks for that. Chris, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just touch on the kind of engagement aspects that Ryan was alluding to. So I think Q&A, and the more you can do to kind of bring in your online viewer into the experience. I know some of the tools we have, you can actually bring in QA from the stream and put it as a lower third as well. It makes people feel like they're a part of the experience, like they can actually affect the outcome. And because of that, I think they're going to be a lot more engaged and ready for the next streams you have down the line.
Great. Another question we have is, can we get the same LinkedIn Live metrics, which we get when going live on our company page, also on a LinkedIn Live event page? So I think the answer to this is, yes, you get the same ones whether you stream to an event or a page audience. So you'll still get to see things like reach and engagement, video metrics like total views, unique viewers, and total watch time. And then the audience firmographics that Chris had mentioned previously, in this episode, like top companies, locations, and functions watching, which you won't find that data anywhere else. Okay, another question we have is, can we pre-record? So I think I mentioned this previously, but this is actually against our guidelines as it reduces member trust and also potentially damages your brand. If a member clicks into an event that is advertised as live, they expect it to be live. Also, the most successful events on LinkedIn are truly live and allow for two-way interaction between speakers and viewers, which you don't get pre-recorded. Again, like that's something that Chris mentioned earlier, that attendees get to interact with each other, which is something really unique for online experiences. I don't know if either of you had anything to add to that other than what I just mentioned.
Well, Ryan's in Adobe are the perfect example. They had a pre-recorded piece that they were pushing to all their different platforms, and when they started working with us, we said, hey, that's kind of against our guidelines. And they shifted really quickly. And I don't know what you think about it, Ryan. The end result was really engaging, very authentic, and I think people.
I think the way that we ended up being the right direction. Again, it was incredibly engaging. There was a lot of love within the comments, and the fact that we could just have someone in real time, responding to those questions, I think made it more powerful.
Yep, I completely agree, and +1 to both of those. Another question that we have is around what the most successful webinar type is. So this is really a great question because there's so many different broadcast formats that you can take. It can be like this, where you have a host and guests. It could be a Q&A between two people. It could be a fireside chat with someone from leadership. It could be a keynote or something like that. So do either of you have tips on what you've seen as the most successful broadcast type so far?
I know, Chris, I'll start with you because I feel like just with all the lives that you've probably run.
Sure. I'll just kind of go on there. Yeah. So I think the live interview format's working really well with virtual events right now. Just the ability to bring in somebody on a one-on-one or ask me anything type of broadcast. Those are the ones that we're seeing work really well because we're kind of limited in what we can stream right now. But that kind of interview format's working really well. And like LinkedIn is a good example of that. I think they probably do 7 or 8 different live interviews with different thought leaders throughout the week.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I can add one thing to that. I do think, and I think it all depends on what kind of value you're trying to get from it, or what your objective is. So, certainly keynotes, there's always a purpose for them. There is a reason to have them to deliver certain types of information. I will say personally, as a consumer, I'm always going to get more value out of, a fireside chat or some type of interview, just because it does add that spontaneity, and you're going to get answers that aren't completely prepared. And so I think there's a little bit more of a intriguing quality to those pieces, but certainly is value to each type, again, depending on what your objective is for having the webinar.
Mm-hmm. Another question we have is, what is the best platform for using breakout rooms or other socializing breaks during a webinar/virtual conference? Yes, so LinkedIn is working on building breakout rooms and networking tables for LinkedIn events. So more to come definitely on that. Let's see what we're doing. Time for maybe 1 or 2 more. So, all right, in-person versus virtual, which events had higher numbers of attendees based on your experience at Adobe? So that one was directed to Ryan specifically.
Yeah, I mean, if we were going to compare Summit 2019, which was an in-person event in Las Vegas, with Summit 2020, which was a digital event, there were more people who saw our content, at least some of our actual sessions in 2020. I do think, again, that it is hard to fully replace an in-person event, because you not only have the 20,000 in-person attendees, they are part of the marketing engine in a lot of ways, because they are on the ground sharing the message around Summit. And so I would say that the attendee numbers are not exactly equal in that sense. I do think that there's a lot of great results that can come out of a digital event. Again, I think when you're running an event that is, the goal is to drive, the pipeline business, the pipeline, with an online event, you can get users into that experience. Like, you can start driving them right into the funnel. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities there. Certainly not equal, but I do think, if you're looking at an apples to apples comparison, like, there are more people, just because it does become a truly global, accessible event when it's a virtual event.
Okay, great. Okay, I think that, we're running up on time, so I think that's all the time we have for questions for today. Thank you again for submitting all your questions. If we didn't get to yours, stay tuned. We might be able to do a blog post with the remaining questions to get those answered. So thanks again to our very esteemed guests, Chris Packard and Ryan Lytle, for joining us today to share their virtual event wisdom. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's been an honor.
And to our audience, we hope this helped you and your team as you plan for upcoming virtual experiences. Events come in all shapes and sizes, and along with them come a variety of objectives, whether you're looking to build brand awareness, as we mentioned, with new audiences, or strengthen relationships with existing. Our global community of LinkedIn marketing partners are here to support you, help you to plan and execute your live event strategy. So to learn more about that, go ahead and visit our LinkedIn Marketing Partners site. And be sure to head to our blog to get your copy of the ebook we just launched today on the LinkedIn Marketing Solutions blog, called Turning Your In-Person Events into Online Experiences on LinkedIn. Thanks again for joining. Please mark your calendars for our next Live with Marketers episode, airing on August 13th. The topic is marketing to the CFO, which is super timely, given that marketers across the board are experiencing budget cuts, and it's more important than ever to prove our value as marketers and prove the ROI of our ad spend dollars to our leadership teams. So until next time, take care, everyone.